Thank you for giving your precious time today. And I'll hand it over to you now. Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thanks Priya for invitation, and I would like to thanks Lakshya, a society for societal, social, and environmental development. Today, the purpose of this session is to highlight the impact of climate on the human population. As we know that climate change is a very burning topic right now. Most of the conventions or most of the international conferences between various international countries are happening on the basis of this climate change. Now, I would like to focus that the carbon emission, greenhouse effect, increasing the temperature globally, rise in the sea level. These are the prominent climatic changes impact on the human population. Now, uh, I am from anthropological background, and in anthropology, we study the impact of the climate on the human society and human development in the various aspects. The purpose of the today's meeting is to make the audience enlightened regarding the various results of the climate change on the human population. And today I will like to start my presentation. Please allow me the screen sharing. Yeah. Hope my presentation is visible.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Yes, sir.
Mhm. First of all, the topic of the today's is that anthropology in the context of contemporary climate change, climate in relation with culture. Particularly, this slide depicts what is actually happening, what actually is the scenario. Like, we have the floods, we have unoccasional floods due to the disruptive anthropogenic activities in various parts of the world, part of our country. The nature has provided a very economic environment friendly situation to the humankind, but humans, due to their own greed, or whatever we can say, due to their own mismanagement, have caused anger to the nature. This picture solely depicts the same. Before starting the presentation, I will like to mention what is anthropology, because I am referring to a common person who is very new to anthropology or maybe listening to the anthropology for the first time. So it's my duty to make them introduced to the subject of anthropology first. Anthropology actually consists of two words, anthropos and logy. Anthropos means people, okay, and logy is the study of people throughout the world, their evolutionary history, how they behave, adapt to different environments, communicate, and socialize with one another. Actually, anthropology studies the human civilization from the aspect of evolution, from the aspect of climate, from the aspect of the genetic makeup, and from the aspect of the environmental impact and the adaptation to that particular environment. That is anthropological perspective. As I have already said, the study of anthropology is concerned both with the biological features that make us human, such as physiology, genetic makeup, nutritional history, and evolution, and with social aspects such as language, culture, politics, family, and religion. Now, what is culture? As we are studying the impact of climate on the culture, so we should know what actually the culture is. The word culture derives from a French term which in turn derives from Latin colere, which means to tend to the earth and grow, or cultivation and nurture. Culture encompasses religion, food, what we wear, how we wear it, our language, marriage, music, and is different all over the world. The values, beliefs, language, rituals, traditions, and other behaviors that are passed from one generation to another within any social group. Broad definitions include any socially definable group with its own set of values, behaviors, and beliefs. In the simple terms, we can correlate that the marriage rituals in different states of India are different. The beginning of the marriage ceremony is different, other rituals are different. Hence, this is a set of some practices which are unique to a particular community, where unique to a particular caste or unique to a particular religion. And these practices we learn from our fathers, grandfathers, and we keep on passing these practices to our children, grandchildren. Hence, we can say that culture are certain set of practices which we inherit from one generation to another generation, and which are unique to a particular community. In a very simple term. Now, what is climate? Now, as we know that climate is generally a weather over a long period. This can include rainfall, temperature, snow, or any other weather conditions. Basically, climate is a subtotal, sum total of the weather existing over a period of time over a particular place. Hence, we call it a climate. And that is long period is approximately estimated around 30 years, 20 to 30 years. Now, very interesting. Does climate influence culture? People have long suspected that climate shapes attitudes and behavior. In the spirit of the laws, 1748, French philosopher Baron de Montesquieu claimed that cold air increases the blood flow to the heart. Actually, now here we can depict that the philosopher Baron de Montesquieu is saying that cold air increases the blood flow to the heart. It means he has observed that people residing in the mountainous regions, they have more capacity to cope up with the less oxygen conditions prevalent over the mountains. Now, as we know that people in the hilly regions, they have more capability to breathe in the thin oxygen content. People from the plain moving towards the mountain, they fall asleep, or they undergo dizziness because their body is not acclimatized to that climatic situation. Even the red blood count cell, RBC count, of the mountain people is more than the people residing in the plain. Now I will discuss mechanisms that link climate to the cultural outcomes. Before starting the further presentation, I would like to definitely share some examples. Like, there are certain groups which are more prone to the climatic changes. As previous decade, last 10 years, I am taking about examples of United States. In United States, the population around the coastal region of the United States, it has increased abruptly. Why? Because the coastal regions facilitates the good situations or good conditions which are required for the human existence. because coastal areas are also the trade centers, and when the trade is there, the flow of money is there, rise in the living standard is there, and fulfillment of the daily needs is there. Better opportunities are present, and more flourishment of the human civilization will occur. The climate mostly impacts two vulnerable groups according to the age. First of all, old people, which are not so much able to cope up with the abrupt climate change like snowfall. Like in America, Colorado, we have seen abrupt snowfall this year, and lot of people have died while sitting in their car. And you can see that the human body during the aging or after the aging, it has less capacity to respond to the harsh climatic conditions. And second one vulnerable group is the children below 17 years, because they are more or less dependent on their parents for their existence. There are several possible channels through which climatic features such as variation in temperature and precipitation as well as weather shocks may influence the cultural traits. We may feel sad when it rains and happy when the sun comes out. Extreme heat has been linked to aggressive behaviors and crime rates. Weather anomalies threaten our livelihoods and survival, producing psychological responses. This is the assumption based on the previous studies, which is based on the African continent, where the climate is hot and humid most of the time, and we can see that the crime rate in the that one African societies are very much prevalent. Like in Namibia previous year and Kenya border, there is a tribal group which are involved in the massacre of more than 1,000 men there. So studies are linking the psychological behavior with the climate in this slide. People adapt to their environment. They adopt beliefs and behaviors that ensure survival in a given climatic conditions, learning from one another and passing the information to their offspring. Or they migrate in search for more hospitable environment. As I have discussed earlier also, that migration generally takes place due to the harsh environmental condition on the primary basis. After that, on the secondary basis, takes place on the for recurring the opportunities which are not present at the habitable place. Hence, one has to migrate in search of the better opportunities. And human history has several examples of migration, and migration was quite evident from the African continent first, time of that one Homo erectus, and Homo erectus first was the to be migrated. The observed differences between cultural traits and the behaviors may be thus in part the product of human adaptation to a wide range of habitats. Now just see what we are trying to say in this slide is that we can see the culture of the people living on near the equator. Near the equator, what we see dark pigmentation of the skin, and the dark pigmentation of the skin is the response to the sunlight prevalent over there. The melanin content is very high among the people who are residing near the equator rather than the people who are residing near the poles or the Arctic region or Antarctic region. We can see that in the colder climate, people they are generally of whitish color, and melanin content is very low to accommodate the vitamin D synthesis, so that whatever the skin color is there, the skin color impacts the synthesis of vitamin D inside the skin. Hence, in the response to the sunlight, the skin color varies. For instance, climate influences agricultural practices, which affect the value of cooperation, optimal family and community size, gender norms, and so on. Now, with this sentences, I would like to throw a light that humans were hunters first. Okay. Then humans became hunter and gatherers, and after that the agriculture took place, means cultivation took place near the Neolithic period. When the agriculture took place, then the labor demand increased, hence the cooperation among the humans start to increase. Humans started to take the collective responsibility of a particular task, because in farming a lot of task is there, from sowing of seed to the plugging of the fields and harvesting the crops. There are several tasks, hence as individual cannot perform all the tasks. Hence the cooperation evolved after the commencement of the agriculture in the human civilization. Before that also, in hunting gathering societies also, people started to hunt in pairs, people started to make tools so that hunting can become easy, but that was not so much a community involved task. After the commencement of the agriculture, the humans started to cooperate in a more societal way. From climate patterns to agriculture practices, I have given the short background already. Now this is a painting, this is a rock art painting from the site known as Tassili and Ager from Algeria. It's a painting which is showing, you can clearly see the cattle are there, I think cows and buffaloes or maybe the bulls, and you can see some here in painting, you can see here these are the persons which are directing this cattles, and they are utilizing the cattles for their own needs. I think it is, yeah, it is a very old painting. That time these paintings are the real proof of the human civilization rather than any documented proof which is being given by the travelers. This is the solid proof which we anthropologists consider from the core of our heart, and this painting does not need any justification or any clearance to anybody. This is self-explanatory in itself. One of the earliest forms of the adaptation to climate is the invention of agriculture. Now I have already told. Seasonality encouraged hunter-gatherers to store foods and transition from a nomadic to a sedentary lifestyle, eventually leading to invention of agriculture. You know that hunter and gatherers, humans started hunting first, and they started to accumulate that food. But humans were not sedentary. Sedentary means what? Sedentary means that I have a stable lifestyle, I have a stable place to live. I don't move here and there for other purposes. Nomadic, we move from one place to another place in search of food, or the humans were doing that. While farmers may have eaten less than hunters and gatherers on average, storing food smoothened their consumption, reducing episodes of starvation. Like in Harappan civilization also, we have the evidences of the storage of the food or storage of the wheat grain in the large shells made up of, we can say, uh, the large contentments were there to store the food. Hence the storing the food definitely prevented the humans to go for hunting, because the food is when stored, then no need to hunt. Using panel of reconstructed climates for past 22,000 years around the world, researchers estimated that a 10-degree increase in the range of annual temperature accelerated the arrival of agriculture by approximately 1,000 years. Actually, earlier it was ice age. After the ice age, the climate started becoming favorable for the agricultural existence, because we know that proper sunlight is required, proper rainfall is required for most of the staple crops. Hence the evolution in the climate definitely promoted the growth of several crops. Agriculture developed at intermediate levels of climate volatility through the gradual accumulation of knowledge about the local environment. Now we can see that the first crop to be harvested was, I think, rice. It was rice. The site is there in China, from where the rice cultivation we have the evidences. Extreme climate volatility eliminated the underlying resource base and prevented ecological experimentation, whereas stability reduced incentives to experiment and search for alternative sources of the food. Climate also determined the form of agricultural activity, which in turn shaped norms and the behaviors. Now you can simply see the difference of the crop yield in the North India, South India, and the East India. In eastern part of country, like in the north in the states, the shifting cultivation is still prevalent, and they sow the crops on the layers or different layers on the ground. As the seasonal difference is there between north and south, hence the cultivation of the crops and the harvesting of the crops also varies. In south we can see that there is a prominence of the like masalas, spices. They grow more, they grow coconut more. In north India we grow rice more, we grow wheat more, due to the climatic conditions. Studies have shown that societies that practiced on plug agriculture developed gender division of labor and more unequal gender norms than societies that practice shifting cultivation. Like in proper agriculture societies, like we have someone has a large acres of land. Now he has to cultivate the crops. He need labors there always, from sowing of the seeds to harvesting. It is a long activity. So the division of labor is there. We can see in the traditional agriculture societies only males are involved in the agriculture practices, because it requires sternus, muscular effort. Hence, males are contributing in the agriculture practices. While in the shifting cultivation, like I said, in northeast, we can see that the muscular activity of that sternus level is not required in the shifting cultivation. Even the females are also participating in the agriculture practices in northeast region of India. Hence, the gender disparity is much more prominent in the northern India as compared to northeastern India. Christophe and Martin proposed that reliance on animal husbandry increase the rates of birth outside the marriage. Animal husbandry means rearing of the cattle, taking the care of the cows, buffaloes, oxes, and bulls for the agriculture needs. Hence, the males who are involved in such practices, they give less time to their family because they live outside the places of their paternal birth or their home. Hence, due to the continuous involvement on the site of the animal husbandry, they have started making the offspring outside the marriage. This is because in husbandry the workload was distributed evenly throughout the year, which meant that most workers were permanently employed as farmhands, lived on the farms, and paid in the kind. The farmhands were less likely to marry, producing more illegitimate offsprings who also became farmhands. Now we can see how the human needs of financial cause, it shifts the cultural part of the society, as legitimacy of the child is through marriage only in most of the societies. But in the society where the sternus activity is involved in the fields of the animal husbandry, the laborers don't they marry at the home, they do offsprings at the site of the animal husbandry where they are practicing this. This equilibrium source of cheap labor contributed to the toleration of the illegitimate children and explains why today, when agriculture is no longer the dominant form of the production, non-marital births are more prevalent. The incidence of shotgun weddings is lower, and acceptance of the single parenthood and cohabitation is higher in the regions where husbandry rather than crop farming predominated. I already explained this. how climate shaped norms and the beliefs. Johannes and Ruben stated that the need of subsistence farmers to cope with the climatic risk generated demand for cooperation and cultivated norms of generalized trust. They support this argument using high resolution climate data from Europe for 15 to 2000, 1500 2000 in combination with contemporary survey data on self-reported trust in 25 countries. Now, I have already explained that since the evolution of the agriculture from the Neolithic period, the human have started working in the cooperation in a very good manner. The cooperation is always possible when we have the trust on one another. Hence, the farmers the farmers who are working together for a particular cause, they are for the yield of crop or either for the caring of the cattles, they have to trust each other during the process so that they may provide a collective effort for a common purpose. Dang and Dang find similar patterns in Vietnam where a single drought could devastate a farming community in the absence of insurance and credit market. They calculate extreme rainfall variation and year to year deviation in rainfall using data that starts in 1927 and measure interpersonal trust and borrowing behavior in 2008 survey. They show that rural households in the regions with greater variation in the rainfall have higher interpersonal trust and are more likely to ask village members and family members for monetary help in emergencies. Now, I have already told that rainfall definitely increases the crop yield because water is required for the cultivation of the crops. When they have the ambient rainfall, they are more sure about the yield of the crops and they are more financially secured. And in that case, also the trust plays an important factor in the cooperation. Does climate have a direct effect on cultural traits in addition to indirect effects via agriculture practices? Benson evaluates the religious coping hypothesis whereby individuals turn to God to deal with adverse shock. Like in countries where natural calamity is more prevalent, like in Japan, earthquake is more prevalent. In some countries of Europe, the volcanic eruption is more prevalent. In our country also, many states, floods are more prevalent, like Sorrow of Bengal, Sorrow of Bihar. The rivers are given the name on the basis of the devastation they have done in the history. In these type of regions, people trust on God is more because they are living in certain uncertainty. Hence, to make certain, the faith is the best instrument of all the insecurities in all the societies. Hence, the people who are residing in the places where the natural calamity is more, uncertainty of the life is more, you will observe the worship of the God is also more. The religious practices are very prominent than any other societies in that region. Using both cross-sectional and the panel data, she demonstrates that living in an earthquake risk zone predicted higher religiosity and that individuals become more religious in the aftermath of an earthquake. The challenge for analysis is disentangling the psychological coping mechanism from the economic effects of the earthquakes. Conclusion: Anthropology intersects with long standing concerns in anthropology generally, an interest in human relationships with the environment, attention to inequality and cultural difference, and working through how people define, understand, mediate, and solve problems. Anthropological research can show how people adapt to rapidly changing environments and point out diverse notions of value and knowledge that can help us understand and respond to the climate crisis in more just and effective ways. Thank you.